We have our three presentations and presenters, and the first one is Tayebeth Sohrabi, postdoctoral fellow, family medicine, faculty of medicine. And the presentation is Enhancing Learning Through Purposeful, Personalized, and Process-Oriented Feedback. Our second one will be Dr. Jamie Skidmore, Professor, Department of English, Faculty of Humanities and Social Science, and Sherry White, Instructor, Department of English, Faculty of Humanities and Social Science. And the title is Soap Operas and Team Teaching. And our last will be Dr. Julie Pitcher Giles, Assistant Professor of Business Administration, Janice Ryan, Lecturer of Business Administration, School of Arts and Social Science, Grenfell Campus. And their presentation is titled Faces and Spaces, Community Building in Online Courses. And when everybody is ready.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tayebeth, and I hold a PhD in education. I'm currently a postdoctoral fellow in the Faculty of Medicine. Today, I'm excited to share my experience as a member of the 646 program about developing a model which is titled Triple P. I would like also to express my sincere thanks to wonderful team members that I had this privilege to contribute with them in this project. Dr. Shabnam Asghari, Dr. Sherry Bethlehem, Dr. Wendy Graham, and Miss Emily Hassi. We respect and acknowledge that the lands on which the Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse indigenous groups. And we acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Inuit of this province. As we open our heart and minds to the past, we commit ourselves to working in a spirit of truth and reconciliation to make a better future for all. I would also like to acknowledge that the 646 Faculty Development Program received operational funding and support from the Faculty of Medicine, Memorial University, IGA, and my tax support. This study is done by 646 group. 646 program is part of the Faculty of Medicine at Memorial University. It's designed to support rural and remote doctors by helping them build their research skills. Through this program, doctors develop important questions about healthcare in their own communities and how to find practical solutions. The goal of 646 is to improve healthcare in rural areas by giving doctors the tools and support they need to research that matters to their patients and their communities. To start first, I will define peer feedback. Peer feedback means giving classmates helpful comments about their work, like pointing out a mistake and suggesting how to make it better. It helps with learning by showing how well someone or something is doing compared to the goal, and by giving advice on what's working well, what needs improvement, and how to improve it. And the peer feedback help both the person giving the feedback and the one receiving it. For the learner receiving feedback, it gives them a fresh perspective on their work. They can see what they've done well and what needs improvement. It helps them understand how to grow and make their work better. For peer giving feedback, it's also learning experience. When you look closely at someone else's work, you practice thinking critically. You start noticing details, and that can help you improve your own work too. It's also build communication and teamwork skill. Learners feel more connected and supported, which can make learning more enjoyable and less stressful. Although we know that peer feedback is really important in learning, many learners still struggle with it. They may not feel confident or may not know how to give and receive good feedback. Also, most feedback models only focus on one part of the process, like only in the instructor's feedback or only peer feedback, rather than looking at the big picture. To help learners stay more engaged, we need a feedback model that brings everything together. A good model should support both instructors and learners, guide peer discussion, and help everyone check on learning progress regularly. This way, feedback becomes more useful, more balanced, and a natural part of the learning process. There are many factors that play a role in how students learn. It's not just about one factor. It depends on many factors such as the students themselves, their peers, and how they all interact together, their educators, and many other factors. But in educational settings, the main factors are mainly learner, peer, and teaching team. So in our model, we consider these three factors, and to make it easy to remember, we chose a word that starts with letter P: peer, presenter, and pedagogue. Then for each of these factors, we adopted and adjusted a model and named this model triple P. Within the triple P model, pedagogues employ the teach-in-place model to moderate the feedback process within a classroom that benefit from place rubric for environment factors that influence the learning. The teach model helps guide how pedagogues give and receive important support during learning. Here, the main factor for pedagogy is presenters should get support at the right time based on what they need and create learning plan. Also, pedagogists need to consider the teacher should clearly explain their learning goals and what success look like. Feedback should matter the presenter's level and help them move forward. The other factor, which is we title competency, the focus should be on building a skill, knowledge, and positive learning habits. And also, the pedagogue should consider both the pedagogue and peer should give feedback that is kind, useful, and helps move forward and improve learning. This model makes sure feedback is supportive, clear, and help everyone grow. To support peer feedback, the learning environment should encourage a student to talk, share ideas, and learn from each other. So we developed a place rubric that help us think about what makes peer feedback work well. Place rubric start with P. P is for peer interaction. Students should talk, share ideas, and learn together. L is for learning environment. Space should feel safe and respected with enough time, tools, and support. A is for academic achievement. Students should have a chance to grow and move forward in their project. C is for cognitive development. Learning should help a student think better and build knowledge step by step. E is for emotional development. Feedback should also support communication, empathy, and confidence. This help create a strong learning environment for everyone. We also use the SNAPS model for presenter to help them share their project and get useful feedback. It has 6 easiest steps. is which is the first step, and the presenter first of all summarize their project in the very short and with very little details, in maybe in 2 or 3 sentences. Then narrow down what they want help with, or what part they are unsure about, actually what they want to do in their project. After that, ask their peers or teacher for a special feedback, like should they do this or that. Then their peers give comments or ask questions about the presenter project. Then presenter summarize what they have heard and say what feedback was helpful. And it's a kind of concluding all received feedback. Lastly, make a short study or follow-up plan of what they want to do for the next step. This model help to guide the group discussion and make feedback more focused and useful, because sometimes presenters are not sure how they should promote, how they should present their work, and how much time they have, and sometimes this can go beyond their work. But this model helps them to focus on their presentation. We also developed the RISE model that helped peers about giving feedback during a presentation to their peers. It has a 4-step R. It starts with R, which start of reflect and ask peers to think about presentation based on a focus chosen by the teacher. Then inquiry, ask a question and understand more and share ideas. If some part of the presentation was not clear for them, now at this point they can ask their question, and then they should give the suggestion like what to stop, keep, or start doing to the presenter to help him to progress in his project. And the last step is evaluate. This step helps make the project better by saying what you like, what could be improved, and new ideas to try. This simple way gives clear and supportive feedback. Then presenter, after presenting their work and receiving feedback from both peer and pedagogue, fill out the learning plan template to help improve and plan their next step. The learning plan is filled out together by presenter and their peer and pedagogue. It helps a presenter use feedback by receiving and figuring out what to work on next. The template has 5 parts. The first one is a task, what presenter want to do next. Presenter should write clearly and in a way that's realistic. Then the next step is resources. What or who presenter need to help in the next step, like which people, what tools, what support. The other factor is timeline. Presenter will start out when the presenter will start, when finish it. And any small step in between should be decided at this point. Also, presenter should think about barriers that might happen during the new step, and think about the possible solution. What might get in the way, and and how the presenter plan to deal with it. And the last step is the result on the next step, that presenter summarize what they learned and what want to do after. To wrap up, peer feedback is really important in learning process. The triple P model gives us a practical way to get learners more involved in giving and using feedback. It also helps learners build confidence, improve how they present, and think more deeply about their work. Thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to take any question you may have.
So we have no questions, so thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next presentation, soap operas and team teaching.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll just say that Lisa couldn't be with us this morning because she's in Costa Rica. Apparently in a treehouse. So here we are. What Lisa is saying is thank you so much to CITL and to Donna Downey, and I'll mention the rest of the team in a few minutes. This was a project that Lisa and Sherry jumped in as well. Lisa initiated. She came to us and she wanted to create a soap opera with our classes. So it consisted of 3 classes, 2 in television or screenwriting, and then TV production as well. Do you remember what else she said by any chance? Any other things you want to add? Should we just go on?
No.
Why don't we go on to the synopsis?
Yeah, so basically we decided we were going to create a TV show, write it together. What had happened was I'm a TV writer, and Lisa had taken this workshop where she experienced in the workshop that I was doing what a writer's room is, where you collaborate as a team to write something. And she thought, this is amazing. She was at CITL, that they have all this amazing resources here. Why don't we, find a way to bring this into the department and into the university? And so she put our brains together and we figured out a way. So we decided to create a show called Behind the Curtains, which is a show. And because we were trying to be thinking about production restraints, we decided we would set it behind the scenes of a soap opera. So in this kind of satire, I guess, it's about long-running soap opera. The network executive is showing up. She's ready to pull the plug because the ratings are terrible. And meanwhile, the director and the writers and everybody there, they start working together to try to convince her to just fire the head showrunner, who's this outdated guy who's been in the job for too long, and blame it on him. Then he ends up getting murdered. And so everybody's suspect in the drama. She goes from there.
And we'll try the next video.
Oh, did you want to play this?
Oh, I thought it was stuck. Well, we can play it.
No, I just paused it because you were.
Oh, sorry. I thought it froze.
You tried to steal all her thunder here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Moore, and I had the great fortune of working with Jamie Skidmore and Sherry White on this wild and crazy project that we did with CITL and Donna Downey and everybody who works at CITL in the studio. So we decided to create a soap opera and write it with the students. And then Sherry and I worked on the synopsis and taught the classes. And Sherry brought this magnificent expertise of how to write episodic television, and Jamie knew how to produce in the studio. So a soap opera was a great idea because it allowed us to be parodic about the form, and we included every trope of a soap opera that we could think of, and we got to work with the incredible talent at CITL. And I got to watch Sherry in action, getting these scripts together with the students and running a television room, which is the way people work in television. And also I saw Jamie, teaching each student, giving them an opportunity to work behind the camera, to set up the lighting. And because it was the story of a soap opera behind a soap opera, we were able to work within the studio and use all the equipment that CITL has on offer. And I think the students just got a really rounded understanding, pedagogically speaking, of everything that goes into making a television show. Thank you.
And that was not from the treehouse. Could you play the second video, please?
This is a little clip of the
This exec lady wants a new script. She wants to add back the love scenes in, make new changes. And like right now, like yesterday...
Didn't we just write a new script?
Yeah, exactly. Like a new script. Then... Okay, don't shoot the messenger, all right? We heard Irina. The exec wants the changes and she wants them now.
That's mental, deranged, a complete disregard for how long it takes to draft, edit, and then draft again. A complete mockery of our entire craft.
Yes, that. Exactly.
Well, guys, the exec gets what the exec wants.
Then have her write a new script in 55 minutes then.
Yeah, I'd love to see someone tell her that.
Then that's what I'll do.
Yeah, like how you told your mom you were going vegetarian.
I'm getting to it, all right?
It's been 5 months.
Look, when the exec gets here, I'm going to tell her that this is insane and impossible, and we are not going to do it. She needs us, and if she thinks she can just waltz on in here and... I think we need to run.
I'm looking for Magnolia.
Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know, the story room is the room where every TV show, most TV shows, where you have a gathering of writers and they all work together to sort of arc out the season and decide on the story of every episode. And the thing about these rooms, whether you're in person or virtual, whatever, it's, you're surrounded by whiteboards and index cards and lots of snacks if you're in person. And everyone's brainstorming and basically doing what we call breaking story. One of the things that's so interesting about story rooms is there is an inherent mentorship built into the whole process, because there's this hierarchy of responsibility and experience and knowledge. Because you always have the showrunner at the top, and they're the creative boss. And they'll have a lieutenant, which is basically the number 2, we call them our co-executive producer. And from there, there's various other writers, from mid-level writers, junior writers, writer's assistants, story coordinators. So there's always like a hierarchy of knowledge and ability in the room. And everybody who's there, they want to climb up that chain, whether it's on this show or the next show. So everybody's really, really invested in doing a really good job. And for now, and on the show, everybody's job is to make the showrunner's job as easy as possible. So it's really important that everyone is doing their best work, and it's really important for everybody else to do their best work. So if there's somebody in the room that's like draining the energy, or they're not pulling their weight, whatever, everybody's invested in making that person better, because it all makes everybody look better, right? So that obviously sets up the mentorship of that. So when Lisa talked about this and bringing this into the classroom, it seemed like a no-brainer, because it really has this sort of learning and teaching kind of aspect to it. So we had these 2 4th-year English courses, and there was there was 4th year, lots of different experience or sort of confidence, not a lot of experience in television. So everybody was at a certain junior level in terms of TV, but different levels of confidence, really, which makes a big difference. So quickly, I kind of saw who the leaders kind of rise to the top and who was taking charge and leading the way, but also saw them, because it's collaborative, everyone's getting, it's group writing. So a big portion of the mark was group marks. So they would inherently bring everybody else up. So in the first course, we just talked a lot. And now, mind you, in these courses, we also did some other things. Like it wasn't just entirely the TV show, but a big aspect of it was the TV show. So the first course, we arced the season and talked character and talked, big arcs and how to kind of shape them so that they end on cliffhangers and all that tropey stuff in TV. And then in the second course, we focused on the episodic, each episode, writing them together. And there's still, again, wasn't a lot of time. For example, like one episode, I think it was episode 3, so you didn't get to that one, but we did it. We wrote this, we got this in probably all in 5 hours, which is record. And I'm not saying it was a great episode, because it wasn't. But we broke it as a room and basically decided on the plot points together, what was the best. We knew from the first course, we knew sort of what each episode kind of needed to contain. So then we figured out the plot of each character's through line, which we call the verticals, then you weave it together. So you weave the stories together. And so we did that really quickly, typed them up, and then I divided them out so that everybody had 2 or 3 scenes. Gave them about 3 or 4 hours after class, like get it into me at midnight. Interestingly, nobody was late delivering, because everybody was depending on each other. And, so it was really great. And then I stitched it together and sent it back in what we call a Frankendraft. That's actually a term we use in writers' rooms. So then, of course, it was full of inconsistencies and stuff like that. But we took it back to the room and were able to read it together and note it. And everybody was so invested and really, really into it. So it was such a really good kind of feel-good thing. And interestingly, just you don't know, this is exactly how almost every episode of Scandal was written. It would be given like 24 hours to write the scenes, and we'd divide up that way, and they'd come back in, and the showrunner would rewrite them. Grey's Anatomy too, this like later in the season, all Shonda Rhimes shows. So it works. And then for part of the evaluation for this group evaluation, I asked everybody to recommend their own mark and sort of back it up with not just like how much you brought from the beginning to end, but how much you saw yourself grow through that process and sort of what you contributed. Asked everybody to kind of place themselves in that hierarchy. Where would you see yourself? And to name the showrunner, who they thought was the showrunner. And that was the interesting part for me, because I thought that was a no-brainer, but it was very interesting for me to hear how other people felt who the leader was, because sometimes the leader is not the loudest person in the room. They're not the person with the most confidence, the person checking quietly and doing these others and rallying. So it was really interesting to me and kind of something I take back to my own practice. And then, so from there, the other thing, of course, that we talked a lot about was production and production constraints, because one thing to create a soap opera, but we can't have this soap opera with people, climbing off cliffs. And we have to think about the budget. When I worked on Rookie Blue, we used to have a little note above our whiteboard. What is the budget of your idea? Because we needed to always be thinking about that. Because it's not just about making really creative scripts, it's also about producible scripts. And that's where I throw to Jamie.
Yes, and we had virtually no budget. I paid for all of the blood myself. Thanks again to Donna Downey for letting this all happen. The students in this course had no prior TV production experience, and there were no prerequisites, so they didn't have any training whatsoever. So they started really from the ground up. The course, the 3 courses was a team taught project, but within my course as well, it was team taught. So it was myself, Mark Shallow, who is really our lead with the CITL team, Adrian Collins helped a bit, Benji Keane helped a bit, and then Christopher Darlington and Philip Cairns contributed a lot. And you'll see all of them wandering around the conference. The course was broken down into 4 sections. First of all, there was my lecturing, then there was hands on the equipment, then there was practice, and finally there was the production itself. I would start by lecturing on a particular subject, such as composition, camera movement, editing, things of that nature. And then Mark and his team would move on to the next step, where students would get a chance to operate the equipment that I had lectured on. So Mark might take a group of students, show them how to focus the camera, show them, what a tilt is, what a pan is, what a dolly is, dolly in is. So they get a chance to practice all of these things. And as you can see already, we're preparing students to work in the industry. So you may not recognize some of these words because it's the jargon or the vocabulary of the film and TV business. And it's a language they need to be able to speak and to understand. Students also learn the equipment in the control room, speaking of jargon such as the switcher and the soundboard. And they're also taught how to direct television productions, both again, multi-camera shoots and also single camera shoots as well. As the directors, they would be asked to do some storyboarding. They would ask to be made shot lists. So when they came in to direct, they would be well prepared. We're out of time, but I'm just going to can I just have a couple more minutes? Okay, we're fine. Okay, where were we? So the next thing that came along was actual practice, where we would put the students in various scenarios where they could use the equipment. So sometimes it was as simple as just one student talking to another student as the director in the control room called the camera so we could see, we could practice that very simple exercise. And sometimes we would go into locations where we would be shooting. So for example, we had a death scene that we thought was going to happen in a storage room. And we went in there one day and we shot, we practiced finding someone who was dead in that room. We also shot in my office because there was supposed to be a lot of blood at one point, and we kind of cheated for that, so I didn't have to hire cleaners to clean my office. And we shot at the Arts and Culture Center as well. We recruited actors from the outside. Some of them were professionals. Some of them were, fairly new to the industry. The group we saw here, Addie, who's the first fellow to talk, was also in some of the writing classes as well, but he wasn't in my class at that point. The first episode, I did direct the majority of it, just because I couldn't convince any students to take it on. But one student, Caleb Brown, who was in all three classes and really was a major communicator between the three classes.
He was really the showrunner.
Yeah, he directed at least a quarter of that episode. The second episode I made, I made them choose their preferences of what they wanted to do on the episode. And if they chose director, I made them direct a scene, and they all did wonderfully well as well. During the production phase, I would look over the shoulder of the director, and we also had a script assistant as well, and I would give them tips and notes. And Mark would do the same, and sometimes Philip and Christopher would do the same. Looking over the shoulder, for example, of the camera operator, making sure they understood how to operate the camera, making sure they're getting good levels on the sound equipment. Mark was really the busiest of all of us. It was very fast paced. It really, to a degree, simulated what they would find in the real world with very little time to shoot 2 episodes. There's no way a real production would be able to shoot in the amount, I don't think anyway, in the amount of time that we did it. The students didn't edit the episodes, but they all made opening credit scene. So that one that you saw was made by Stephanie Skinner, one of our students. So basically they learned skills that would really allow them to create their own films or to step onto a set and have at least enough confidence to do so. Maybe not all the skills they would need, it wasn't a lot of time. They learned how to work as a team, be organized, and to troubleshoot technical issues. And they seem to really enjoy the class. I just have a few lines of summary. There's a lot of transferring of knowledge between the classes, which is really important. I think it's a rare thing to see classes work in that manner. Really a different model of team teaching. I felt like in the writing courses, it felt like the students were creating the writing courses. They were deciding how they would work. There's a really strong practical side and the use of CITL. I think the main thing you could take from this as instructors is that any course could be taught with this practical filmmaking aspect. Like think Sesame Street, think electric company, for grown-ups or for kids. And, you could teach math, you could teach science, any of the STEMs and anything from art as well. I've mentioned that already. And students also leave with a finished product in both classes, all 3 classes, that they can use to promote themselves in the future as well.
Thank you very much. We have about a minute or two for any questions, if anybody has any questions or online.
Who killed them? So
Season 2, you find out in season.
we did actually record the 3rd episode. I just an audio version. I haven't finished editing it yet. It is half edited. Yes.
Do you see yourselves future doing this again and maybe working interdisciplinary, like with other courses that are taught at the same time, so you could introduce content that you could then produce into a TV show?
I mean, I think there's so much potential in doing it. It takes a lot of people to get together on that. I think there's so much potential in it for sure.
Yeah.
And I do not myself. It was a wonderful project to work on, but I'm really close to retirement. And my classes, my last 2 classes mapped out. So, but it was great. I loved it. It was. I'm so glad I got to do it. So.
Did you get any feedback from any of the students on this new?
I haven't checked any like CQs or anything like that. I haven't gotten them back. Students don't tend to do those anymore anyway. But one of them told me I was his favorite professor. That's always a good sign. I think they really enjoyed it. I think they had a great time. You're so pleasant to work with and so knowledgeable. Seriously, he really is. And same with all the CITL people. They're so wonderful to work with. They really open, their doors and hearts to us. What about yourself?
I did get some feedback. Some students, it's interesting, and not surprising, I suppose, that they don't love the group writing. That it's demanding, right? It's intimidating. It makes you come out of your shell, and people would rather just go away with their own little projects over here. So I did get that, when we were moving on from doing the group work, they were like, I'm really happy to get to my own project. I feel like, but I still think it's really, really valuable because I think it's important to get people to come out of their shell. And so.
Yeah, it's an important skill. Suzanne?
I'm just curious about the 3 consecutive courses, right? How tricky was it to get students to commit to taking the 3?
They didn't actually.
Some along the way.
They didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to.
No, in fact, only one student did take all 3. You had a few students who did both of your.
Yeah, the English, yeah. So there was one taught in the summer, and then the other 2 were taught in the fall. And yeah, there was only. I think there was one that did all 3.
Caleb did all 3.
But yeah, they didn't need to do them all.
So yeah, it would have been very difficult though.
Yeah.
If you had to have it, yeah, I know, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, that's it for questions. Thank you very much for that. Now we'll move on to spaces, community building, and online courses.
Yeah, so if anybody has their phone or a laptop, if they would like to join us, and anybody online, please, feel free to either scan the QR code or you can go to menti.com and plug in this code. And that will bring you to our short presentation. But we do have a couple of questions there that if you'd like to weigh in, we would certainly invite you to do so. And to the folks joining us online, I'm talking to the board, but I have to touch the camera. Say, good. All right. Yes, please join us online as well, and we're really hoping that we run through very quickly. So Faces and Spaces, community building and online courses. My name is Julie Pitcher Giles. I teach in the Grenfell Business Program. I've been at Grenfell since 2002, so a very long time. I teach primarily in organizational theory, strategy, and change management. I teach undergrad, graduate level, on campus and online.
Yeah. I'm Janice, and like Julie, I'm at Grenfell in the business program.
My primary teaching is in marketing, undergrad and graduate, and as well I teach in research and writing and this semester professional skills in business, on campus, online, and we've been a long time. So with a bunch of different experiences.
Yes, so a range. Before we do get into sharing our own experience though, we're looking just for some context of people in the room, people who are joining us online, for your own experience with online teaching and learning. So we have a few options here. If you're not connected to anything, the options are you a student, past or present, instructor, past or present online, a content author, because sometimes we have content authors who develop courses and then somebody else teaches them. So there's some different engagement levels there. Are you a teaching and learning professional? All of our wonderful CITL folks who have helped us so much we can't even explain over the past 10 years. Are you someone who's only ever done it during COVID because you had to and you've never touched it since? Or maybe you don't have any experience, but you're curious about teaching and online courses. This is helpful to us. We know kind of a little bit about who's in the room, but just to give us a sense of people's exposure and experience and interest. This presentation is open for the next 10 days, I think. If you can log back in, change your responses, add to them. And this is something that we're going to be actually coming back to pull on to kind of tease out some future projects on online teaching and learning. So we thank you for that. And now we'll share a very quick once upon a time. So our story of online teaching and learning, how we landed on faces and spaces as what we think is the most important, at least at this point in time, element to successful online teaching and learning. In 2015, Grenfell Business started to develop online courses. We had an articulation agreement with College of the North Atlantic. Their students were coming into our business program for primarily their last 2 years, and they were not all coming to campus. They wanted online courses, and so that was kind of the push for us to really kind of explore this new area. So we worked very closely with a great CITL team. I think we've worked with, I don't know how many people, so many, yes, who all have made us look great. Over that time, we had a period of about 4 years where about 6 faculty developed almost 15 courses. That's on top of the full-time teaching and research and all the rest of it. So it was a really intense period. What our focus was at that time, it was driven by best practice at the time, which was a content focus. It was you develop great content and they will learn. And so we were really focused on developing a shared look and feel for all our business courses. They all had similar color palette. The structure was very similar. So we put a lot of time and effort into working with our experts at CITL to kind of draw on their own knowledge and their experience on what makes a really engaging, solid, award-winning online course. We were really pleased with what we came up with at that time. We had video content. We had this great, little punchy bits of content that were tied to really good textbooks. Our online evaluation was truly online. They didn't have to come to campus for anything. For invigilated exams, we used online invigilation. And in 2015, this was, relatively cutting edge, and we were quite proud of ourselves. So we were really focused on what students were learning. In hindsight, we were less focused on how they were learning, but we really put a lot of effort into developing these really great, organized, visually appealing courses. And from there, from these kind of great courses over that 4-year period, we developed this suite of content-driven, wonderful courses. And then
we all are now living in an alternate reality of the last 5 years of madness. And at Grenfell, we had an additional layer of that. So, we all know that pandemic strikes, March 2020, there's a Wednesday, and we all get sent home. And then everybody's online, or remote, or hybrid, or something, but we're there. At Grenfell Business, we were relatively okay, because in a lot of our courses, we had content. And we already had shells and we knew how to teach online. So we sort of, I won't say seamlessly, but we shifted and it was okay. But we had the social disconnect that everybody felt in the beginning. And then everybody was making the physical distance, but we were making social connections. And so that tweaked with us. And then as we know, things varied over the next couple of years as we found what was the new normal of online and in class and various things that we were adopting. Then nobody was teaching because we were on strike. So nobody was delivering content anywhere, but we found, and something that we reflected on much later, on that picket line, we were meeting people from other programs, making connections. We had this like MUNFA phone tree, and so we were talking to one another. We didn't know it at the time, but we were forming a different kind of community, and that was how we were figuring things out as we went along. ChatGPT kind of reared its head. I mean, it had been in existence, and that's not an obvious thing around community building. But we were starting to see, again, different types of learning, and then we were all learning. So instead of the teachers, we were becoming the learners. Like Julie and I have attended, I don't know how many webinars. We have a community of practice, and so we've created learning communities to deal with this. So we've done that as learners, which is interesting. And then at Grenfell, we had a cyber attack last year, which I don't know if you can really appreciate it until you live it. So we're home, Christmas holidays, we're told everything's gone. Like your files are locked, you have nothing. So if you had no content in Brightspace, you literally had nothing. We were teaching from podiums. Again, we had Brightspace content, we were okay. But we had a complete communication blackout for a really long time. Like we had no emails, we were doing phone trees. Again, we were texting one another, personal phones, campus phones, just to literally try to get messages to one another. We were being called into, so we teach fine arts at Grenfell, we were called to the theater and we were having in-person meetings and sharing, like, how are you teaching? How are you doing this? We only 2 weeks ago got into the MUN directory. Like, this is not done. So the communication piece just was so critical. And again, we were coming together to learn from one another and share. And so it was just little bits of things that were happening along the way, and we're online teaching. And I don't even know when it tweaked for us, but we sort of said, the one thing that's happening is that community is the element of everything that has happened. And that is where we're following through today.
So that theme of community is the answer. Community is the answer with ChatGPT as we all come together to try to figure out what the heck we're going to do with it. But yeah, so some of the takeaways, I guess, over the last 5 years around our online experiences, but also these other kind of chaotic experiences that have changed the way we approach teaching in class and online. Content is not the only king. We still think content is critical, but kind of as we heard, echoing that first presentation from our keynote speaker this morning, students want little digestible bites. So you don't write as much anymore. Your tone is more conversational. The videos that you use need to be shorter. They need to be punchier. So that the nature of your communication, the way you're trying to engage with your students has changed. It's not only about content. We're not trying to entertain, but we are trying to hook them and capture as much of that limited attention span as we possibly can. Digital literacy equals fake news. So we feel we've been sold a bit of a line because these students that we teach we've been told are digital natives, have grown up with smartphones and have been surrounded by this technology. What we have learned is they can text. They cannot necessarily navigate databases in our library to figure out how to find our Harvard Business Review articles. So we have to put a video together to show them how that's done. Even navigating the Brightspace pages, figuring out how to upload their assignments. So there are digital skills, but there's still this huge gap in digital literacy. And we've been able to we've been able to kind of pull together pieces of a community through resource pages, through connecting with our CITL folks, to create, that support community that's been helpful for us and for students. As we all know, time poverty is very real. Again, echoing some of the same themes that we heard in this morning's conversation. We know there are more pressures on our students who are working, who are doing X number of things while they're also enrolled in our courses. The time poverty for us as instructors is also very real. So this is something, you know, that we've tried to build communities around so that we can maximize the time that we do have. We want to get as much out of that as possible. And that leads us to the type of engagement. It has to be meaningful. The first time we developed courses and we throw in these points to ponder on your own time. Well, that's nice, but you can't make them do it. So if you want them to think about it, tie it to some piece of evaluation. Tie it to something reflective that's going to be related to their potential job prospects at the end of the day. So how do we make what we're making them do, how do we make it truly meaningful for them? And that takes a lot of reflection as instructors as well. Touch points. We were so pleased in 2015 and 16 when we had, you know, we'd schedule once a semester, we do a live check-in. We thought we are fantastic. We are killing this. They're not extra anymore. They are expected. We've talked about it this morning, how student expectations have changed. We need to continue to do these things and not think of them as extra. This is our job now in the online space if we want to be great online teachers. And finally, the online community building. It really does matter. And that's what engages the student to, you know, we try to facilitate that learning. We're building the community to try to pull them in so that they can start driving a little bit themselves. So those are some of the kind of the biggest takeaways that we have from all of this.
And so it kind of gets us to where we are, and not that we're finished. And I tell my students in every class, anytime there's a list, the list is, we have these, but it's not empty. We could fill up a list for hours and days. But these are some of the best practices that we have been doing that are working. And we teach in a professional program, so we recognize it may be quite different across the disciplines, and we're interested to know what other people are doing that's working. So some of the things that we are doing to build community, actively trying to do this, in our Master of Management, which is a fully online course-based master's degree from Grenfell. They're cohort-based, so we have a fall intake and they take the classes together 2 at a time, fully online. We have a mandatory orientation session the August before the class begins. This program was conceived pre-COVID, and we had worked with CITL, and the literature was telling us we actually should have brought them together in an in-person to make those connections because they're cohorted. Obviously, the world changed that. But we do it online, and now we still do that. We are taking our 3rd class in coming fall. So they have several days, but it's to speak about yesterday's keynote, it is kind of that wraparound approach a little bit. So we have them meet admin, we have them meet all the instructors virtually. We have the library presentation, we have student services. So we bring in everybody gets FaceTime, it's recorded, it's posted, and it is required for our students to attend that. We also, in all of our courses, we embrace and leverage introductions, which seems simple, but it's so impactful. So we introduce ourselves as instructors, and we have a separate page for that. Some of us are doing like long text introductions, some of us are recording videos, but we're doing that. In the first week or 2 of class, we're also hosting a live session with the students, record. They come on, they introduce themselves. We also encourage them to introduce themselves in a discussion post, but we meet together and then we leverage those introductions. So if I know that I'm teaching an online course and I have 8 nursing students in the course, I can use that information to tailor my examples, to post information for them. If I'm forming groups, I can try to find people that have synergy or differences. And I can use it in a lot of different ways, but we're doing it on purpose and figuring out as much as we can to make it a community-based learning experience. I've talked about the live portion, live sessions. We generally do several, maybe before and after pieces of evaluation. We record and post for anybody who can't get there. We tend to use WebEx so that we are keeping people in the shell. And again, that's the community. So you're not having to use a bunch of different tools. We regularly use asynchronous discussions, the boards, which are integrated into the courses. So through each module, we'll say, go check out the discussion board, or go look at module 1. Remember what your classmates said there? What do you think about it now that you've studied this post? And so we're trying to connect them to one another. We do team-based evaluations projects. Some of them are scaffolded the way that we've seen. So you're working in the same team. Some are independent, where you're forming different teams throughout the semester. We usually use peer review with peer scholar. So they're working with one another and again, connecting to each other. And we also use other social connections. We use social media to post things to our students. We have a resource page in Brightspace for all of them. So that again, we are connecting them to pieces of the university, their community, because they're not physically here. These are things you can do when you stand up and talk, but they're really hard when you're behind the screen. So these are some of the things that we're doing to try to actively build that piece into our online courses. They're working, and we hope that we can continue to do it.
So this is the last piece. Before throwing it open, see if anybody has any questions or if they have anything they'd like to share about how they build online community. We'd like to ask this question of how you think we can build online community. Maybe how you've made attempts to build it yourself. If there's something new, again, if you don't have anything to add right now, if there's nothing coming on, you can go in and add this at any time. We've heard different approaches. We've heard about trying to have these live connections, but then you get pushed back to, well, my students are taking an online course because they can't be available at a certain time. So you record it and you find ways to make it available and meaningful for those students as well. We've learned even things like the office hour. When you have a standing office hour when you're on campus, that's fine for your on-campus students. And even if you have a dedicated office hour virtually, that doesn't always line up for your online students. So the office hour has kind of died a little bit for us. And instead, we make ourselves available for one-on-one virtual meetings at the convenience of the student, which could be a Sunday morning, or it could be an evening. It's required a lot of adaptability and flexibility. We've discovered things about university policy, structure, administrative-wise that don't always work to create community. And so I think it's prompting us to look at different areas where we can strengthen student communities as well to help facilitate their learning and keep us engaged. So we do have one response. Thank you to our responder. Encourage pictures of live interaction, or if live interactions are not possible.
It's really interesting because as Julie and I were heading up to this room, she said, you know, when we do the student introductions, we can encourage them to post a picture of themselves along with their bio. So yes, we like it.
So simple things, but they do tend to matter for students. So yeah, so those are a few things that we thought we've seen. Maybe they're helpful if you want to try to incorporate some of those things into your own approaches. And anybody with any of their own suggestions, we'd be happy to guinea pig those as well.